Hi, I'm Lynn Cornell, and welcome to Journey Through the Bible, verse by verse. Grab your Bibles and follow along as we study through each book of the Bible, verse by verse and chapter by chapter. I'm using the Holman Christian Standard Translation or Standard Bible. So if you're reading from a different Bible translation, the read will be different, but the message will be the same. We're going to continue in our study through the Gospel of John, and we're in chapter 14, and this is a continuation of the Last Supper, the conversation that Jesus is having with his disciples. Judas has already left to betray Jesus, meaning to go and get the soldiers that will meet them in the Garden of Gethsemane. So now Jesus again is just sharing things with them that is heavy on his heart. And as now Jesus, the somberness of Jesus' tone is beginning to set in on the disciples, and they begin to realize this is not just a regular fellowship meal here, and that Jesus is saying some things, realizing he's not going to be with us. Now, verse 1 says, "Your heart must not be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If not, I would have told you. I am going away to prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and receive you to myself, so that where I am, I may be also." A couple of things here. He tells them, don't let your heart be troubled. Their hearts were starting to get troubled. Like I said, if you'd been around Jesus for 3 years, and he was a wonderful person to be around, he was a great person to be around, they had grown attached to Jesus, they had grown dependent on him. And now Jesus is saying this is getting ready to end. So they're troubled. He says, well, don't be troubled. Now he says, in my Father's house there are many dwelling places. Now, in some translations you may read, especially the King James, it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Well, the mansions means dwelling places. Now, so for years, a lot of people kind of the vision of heaven or going to heaven, well, that I'm going to live in a big Beverly Hills type mansion. And what Jesus is conveying is that actually it's even better than that. The promises of God for those who believe in him are much, much better. You're not just going to have a Beverly Hills mansions, but you're going to be an heir of God, a joint heir with Jesus Christ. But he's not conveying real estate here. It's not even conveying, in this sense, the promise of opulence and luxury. The idea is that Jesus, by saying this, I am going to secure a place for you. And as we move through these scriptures, that will come out in the most plain and simple way. That his sacrifice, Jesus' life himself, will be that way. Okay, now he is going to do that by way of the cross, by way of his death, burial, and resurrection, by way of his trials, his sufferings. That is the way. Now he does say this, and this is very interesting, that I am going to prepare a place. So when I prepare this place, I'm going to come back and receive you to myself. Later we'll get into the eschatology of the second coming of Jesus Christ and the rapture and the controversies around those kind of teachings. But notice here that Jesus makes a very specific promise to those who believe in him, that he will come back and receive us to himself. And that is not just talking about coming back to the earth as the second coming, which he will do. He will come back to the earth and set up a kingdom in which he will rule. Here he's saying, I am coming back to receive you to myself. So verse 4, and again, we're going to get into this in a lot more details and spend a lot more time on it. But so I don't want to spend too much time on it here. Verse 4, you know the way to where I am going. Lord, Thomas said, we don't know where you're going, and how can we know the way? Jesus told them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now this verse 6 here. This single verse destroys the whole philosophy of the world that says there are many paths to God. Okay? This verse is one reason why you cannot have an economical movement. or a kind of merging of beliefs where people say, well, we're just all different paths. We do not, because but not just of what Jesus just said himself right here, every other religion does not claim the same path to God. Jesus is saying, I'm the way. But he's also saying why? Because you are sinful. There are religions who deny the sinful nature of man. So Jesus says to them, but I am the way, the truth. Jesus is claiming, I am the way. No one comes to the Father but by me. There is no other path. I would also say this, that there is no other path. There is no other one claiming to go and prepare the way. Okay? So, by the way, all other religions basically tell you that it is your effort, man's endeavors to get to God. And Christianity is the only religion where God comes to man. And the reason why is because man really is unable to make a way to God. And so God comes to man out of his grace, out of his love, out of his mercy. And Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Verse 7, if you know me, you also know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Lord, said Philip, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Jesus said to him, have I not been among you all this time without you knowing me, Philip? The one who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Now this is true. If you remember in John 1, verse 18, no one has seen the Father ever, but the one and only Son who is at the Father's side has revealed him. Remember, in the beginning was the Word was with God. That Word reveals the Father. And Jesus is saying right here, okay, you see him. All that can be known of God right here is in me. Verse 10, don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I speak to you, I do not speak of my own. The Father who lives in me does his works. Believe me that I'm in the Father and the Father is in me. Otherwise, believe because the works themselves. Now this is kind of interesting because he has to kind of result to the same argument that he was saying to the Jews. His disciples should be past this point. If anybody should know them, because they were with him for 3 years. So they should know who he is. So now he kind of goes back. Well, believe the works then. Just remember the works. Verse 12. I assure you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do. And he will do even greater works than these, because I'm going to the Father. Whatever you ask in my name, I will do it so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask me anything in my name, I will do it. Now, there's a couple of things that's what Jesus said right here. Keep in mind that Jesus is speaking to his disciples, and it is a very generic conversation. Now he's getting ready to tell us why in a moment. At least what he's getting ready to say, you'll understand why in a moment. But he's just speaking in general terms. Now as we move through the New Testament, we are going to get teachings on these very statements. We're going to get explanations, instructions on what Jesus has said. In a sense, you can look at it this way. Jesus is laying the foundation. And then later, the apostles, through their epistles, will give us the teaching and the explanation, that which to build upon that foundation. Now, I say all that because when you see a statement like this, and there are two statements here that you kind of have to understand. One, he said, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Right? So that is kind of the first thing. Greater works, he says, that if you believe on me, greater works, you're going to do greater works. Well, what does he mean by that? Again, it's one of these things that, as he's speaking to the disciples, they would do those greater works. Secondly, you would see that the greater works would be, in a sense, because of the numbers of believers. And again, he's going to explain that in a moment. A lot of us look at this one verse in verse 12, and he's going to kind of say this again. So I'm going to take the time. I want to take the time and kind of explain this here, because there's going to be a couple more times when Jesus will make this kind of same statement. That is, this sort of prayer, and people take it as a promise. So he says right here, if you believe in me, the works I do and greater works I do. Then he said, verse 13, whatever you ask in my name, I will do it. So now, that's kind of great, isn't it? Does Jesus mean whatever I ask? See, in other words, you know he doesn't mean that, because whatever was certainly as a qualifier means whatever. Can I ask for the throne of God? Well, of course not. So what does Jesus mean by that? Now, again, take it in the context in which Jesus is saying. Now, let me give an example. If I was a person that I said, okay, look, I'm going to hire someone who's going to be an office manager. I say, hey, this is my company. You will manage 1,500 employees, and we do business here and do business there. And your job is to keep the office running, keep the supplies of the employees, benefits, whatever. This is your job. And I walk the person down, and I walk into an office. This is your office. And you see this office is a bare office with maybe just a bare table, chair, and desk, right? And I begin to continue, just to explain the nature of their job. And then I said, okay, I'm going to leave you right now. You can get to work. And I say to them, whatever you need, let me know. Now, what did that mean? Whatever you need, right? If I say, let me know, just let me know. And I'll get it for you. Whatever you ask, right? Let me know, I'll get it for you. So what does he mean by that? Now that person, an office person, by the way, will know the context of that statement means whatever I need to do the job. So that person wouldn't say, well, let me order a boat. How about a private jet? How about a vacation home in Aspen, right? Well, let me see how I can order me a Rolex watch. See, that person would know not to even ask that, but they would take it in the context. Now, on the other hand, they may say, well, you know what? I need a better security. Maybe I need a bigger office because I'm going to be doing different things. They may say, well, you know what? I need a company credit card. Maybe I need a better car because I want to go out and do things, whatever. Anything within the context for them to do their job. And that person would know that. So again, when we read a statement like this, and then later as we move through the scriptures, you see that they didn't just ask anything, that they knew in the sense very well the context in which Jesus was saying, in the sense of ministry, in the sense of their service to him. They know that. Okay? And by the way, because I can tell you as a person in my earlier days as a Christian, I did ask for a lot of things and haven't gotten them, haven't received them. Okay? But I believe that when you ask it within the confines of God's will, he will give it to you. Exactly that. And as I said, the disciples themselves knew that because they didn't ask for outrageous things. A lot of them didn't even ask to be delivered from persecution. Okay? But whatever they did ask Jesus for in the context of ministry, doing his will, they always received. Okay, so, I'm going to pick this up in verse 15 next time, because this chapter is kind of a great chapter for, there's a lot of good sayings here that Jesus is saying. So anyway, I'll pick this up in chapter 15. I'll see it verse 15.